What if the drownings weren't accidents? What if something far more sinister was at play? Across the country, young men full of promise vanish without a trace, only to be found lifeless in rivers and lakes. Their deaths are ruled as tragic misfortunes, blamed on alcohol, missteps, and bad luck. Their bodies are discovered miles from where they were last seen, often showing signs that don't align with drowning. And near many of these sites, a chilling symbol appears, a spray-painted smiley face, watching silently from the shadows.
Cargo van. He was driven around Minneapolis for hours and tortured.
These are young, highly intelligent, very athletic young men that disappear after a night of drinking very suspiciously. Most of them have GHB, which is how did this drug wind up in the body? Incapacitated them, they have injuries, they're held for a period of time because there's no decomposition on the body for the amount of time that they're missing, and then they're deposited in bodies of water to be recovered later, drowned, but most of them doesn't even have water in their lungs.
We knew it wasn't, and it was just, one of those things where he walked out and then was never seen again.
I would like Brian to know that if you're out there and you can come home.
If I would have known that was the last time I was ever going to see him, I wouldn't have let him go.
But the investigators refuse to accept coincidence. They believe these deaths are connected, part of a disturbing pattern that points to something much darker, a force operating in the shadows, choosing its victims carefully, leaving behind no witnesses, only questions. Authorities write these cases off, but what if they're wrong? What if this isn't random at all? Watch the video till the end because the truth lurking beneath the surface is far more unsettling than you can imagine.
All across the United States, cases that appeared to be clear-cut murders have been dismissed and blamed on accidental drownings by authorities. Two retired New York detectives by the name of Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte discovered this disturbing trend many years ago. And it is worth noting that together they have more than 40 years experience, and they were extremely well-respected detectives throughout their career.
Ends in 1997 with the mysterious disappearance of 20-year-old Patrick McNeil, a Fordham University student who vanished after a night out in Manhattan's Upper East Side. 2 months later, his body was discovered floating in the East River, miles from where he was last seen. Authorities ruled his death an accidental drowning, blaming alcohol intoxication. But something about the case felt off to Detective Kevin Gannon, a seasoned NYPD investigator with over 20 years of experience. Gannon specialized in homicide cases and led high-profile investigations throughout his career. Known for his relentless pursuit of justice, he wasn't convinced that McNeil's death was just another tragic accident. Gannon noticed inconsistencies in the case. McNeil's body was found face up, which is rare in the drowning cases, and the level of decomposition suggested he hadn't been in the water the entire time. Witnesses also reported seeing a suspicious vehicle following McNeil the night he disappeared. Gannon vowed to uncover the truth. Over the next 15 months, 2 more young men, also college-aged, athletic, and academically driven, disappeared under eerily similar circumstances in New York City. One of their bodies was found near where McNeil's was discovered, and the other was pulled from the Hudson River. Still, law enforcement classified the deaths as accidental, attributing them to intoxication and misadventure. Gannon, however, refused to accept these explanations. After retiring from the NYPD in 2001, he teamed up with fellow detective Anthony Duarte and criminal justice professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson to re-examine cases like McNeil's, which seemed to follow a disturbing pattern.
He was investigating the disappearance of Patrick McNeil, 20, who vanished after a night out with friends at a bar in Manhattan's Upper East Side. His body was found 2 months later floating near a pier in the East River. The death was ruled as an accident. Believing that foul play was involved, Gannon promised McNeil's devastated family that he wouldn't stop until he found out who killed their son. Over the next 15 months, 2 more men around the same age disappeared in New York City. The body of one of them was found near where McNeil's body was found, while the other was discovered in the Hudson River around 138th Street. Before going any further, let's have a look at Detective Gannon's background. In other words, man number one in suggesting the Smiley Face Murder Theory.
Their independent investigation expanded beyond New York as they uncovered dozens of cases across multiple states that mirrored these early drownings. Between 1997 and 2008, more than 40 young men were found dead in rivers and lakes across 25 cities in 11 states, each under similarly suspicious circumstances. Like McNeil, many of these victims had been out drinking, vanished without a trace, and were later discovered in bodies of water. But in at least a dozen of these cases, investigators noticed something chilling: graffiti of a smiley face near where the bodies were believed to have entered the water. This eerie symbol led them to propose what would become one of the most controversial theories in modern crime: the Smiley Face Murder Theory.
Before, Kevin Gannon was the one who recognized this trend, and he's also the one who proposed this theory. Gannon believes that these victims were being drugged when they would go out and visit a bar or stop at a party. They would then leave the bar drugged, unaware of what was going on, which to onlookers, the victims would likely just appear intoxicated, so it really wouldn't raise many red flags. Once outside of the bar, they would then be abducted and thrown into a car, and then held for a period of time, potentially be tortured.
According to Gannon and his team, these deaths were not accidental drownings, but homicides, orchestrated by a highly organized group of killers operating across state lines. They theorized that these individuals, or potentially a network of criminals, were abducting victims, holding them for an unknown period, and eventually disposing of their bodies in water to stage their deaths as accidental. They believed that the killers communicated through hidden channels, possibly even on the dark web, and that the smiley face graffiti served as a signature or mark of their crimes. In 2008, Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson went public with their findings, revealing what they believed was strong circumstantial evidence linking these cases. They pointed to inconsistencies in autopsy reports, such as lividity patterns that suggested some victims had died before being placed in water, the presence of the date rape drug GHB in toxicology screenings, and the improbability of certain bodies traveling the distances they supposedly did. Despite their efforts, the FBI dismissed the theory.
Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte discovered this disturbing trend many years ago, and it is worth noting that together they have more than 40 years experience, and they were extremely well-respected detectives throughout their career. Together, they have theorized that all these strange accidental drownings may be connected. In many of these questionable cases, the victims are almost always males, they are always white, they're college-aged, athletic, intelligent, and popular. They disappear from bars or parties, and typically the victim acts drunk despite only having a few drinks or none at all. Many show evidence of drugging, with at least 30 testing positive for GHB. All were found dead in a body of water days, weeks, or months later. Most had injuries that were not consistent with drowning, and their bodies were found in conditions unnatural for drowning victims. And all were found with graffiti smiley faces at the location that they would have entered the water or where their body was found.
Stating that their review of the cases found no concrete evidence of a serial killer or organized group behind these deaths. They maintained that the majority of these incidents were likely tragic but accidental drownings caused by alcohol impairment. A 2010 report by the Center for Homicide Research further attempted to discredit the theory, listing multiple reasons why the drownings were unrelated. But this was only the beginning, painting a disturbing picture that couldn't be ignored. Next are some of the most chilling cases that reinforce the smiley face murder theory.
It's believed that these smiley faces are the mark of the killers, and it is potentially done so that the organization can mark their crime scenes. This is a common trait among serial killers, so the idea that this graffiti is being used as kind of a tag for their murders seems somewhat likely. And truthfully, looking at this theory as a whole, it does seem somewhat possible. But if this is truly the case, then why haven't the police caught on yet? This could be for a few reasons. Either they are fully convinced that there is nothing going on here, or they're covering something up. And truthfully, it would make a lot of sense for them to want to keep this on the down low. If police had admitted that a large group of murderers had been killing people for this many years, it would be a very bad look for them. I mean, admitting that this group is out there or even entertaining the idea would practically equate to them admitting that they got hundreds of cases wrong in the past. And along with this, if officials began to investigate these alleged murderers now, a panic would surely ensue as people would begin to believe that serial killers are executing people all across the United States. So there is a logical reason why the police and other authorities would not even want to entertain this theory. Now, to date, one of the biggest flaws with the Smiley Face Murder Theory is motive. Every murder has a motive.
On a Halloween night in 2002, 21-year-old Christopher Jenkins vanished after leaving a Minneapolis bar. 4 months later, his body was found in the Mississippi River, lying face up with his arms crossed, an unnatural position for drowning victims. Initially ruled an accident, police later reclassified it as a homicide after witnesses suggested he had been abducted and thrown into the river.
Jenkins. Christopher Jenkins, 21, was a University of Minnesota marketing and entrepreneurial management major. He was a star athlete, a two-time team captain of his lacrosse team, who was set to graduate with stellar grades from the university's prestigious Carlson School of Management. He was last seen on October 31, 2002, after being kicked out of Lone Tree Bar and Grill in downtown Minneapolis, where he was partying with his friends. 4 months later, his body was found encased in ice in the Mississippi River.
Graduate student Dakota James disappeared after a night out in January 2017 in Pittsburgh. Surveillance footage captured him heading toward a dark alley before vanishing. His body was found in the Ohio River 40 days later, showing minimal decomposition, suggesting he hadn't been in the water the entire time. Ligature marks on his neck hinted at strangulation, leading many to believe he was murdered.
To James. Dakota James, a 23-year-old graduate student at Donetsk University, who was working full-time while getting his MBA, vanished on January 25, 2017, after a night out with friends at a bar on Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and heading for home on the north side. The last known picture of him alive was caught on a surveillance camera which showed James entering a dark alley. His body was discovered 40 days later, floating in the Ohio River, about 10 miles from where he was last seen in downtown Pittsburgh. James's death was listed as an accidental drowning. However, as Gannon said, there is no way a body could travel 10 miles through a dam, 40 days, and be that pristine. It's impossible. In December 2018, Gannon and Cyril Vecht, a forensic pathologist, reported that based on an independent examination on James's autopsy photos, he might have been strangled due to ligature marks on the back furrow of the neck. Gannon believes that James was then drugged with GHB, abducted, held for some time, killed, and dumped in a body of water.
Brian Welzien went missing on New Year's Day after celebrating in Chicago. His body was discovered 77 days later, 30 miles away, yet it showed minimal decomposition. Experts estimated he had only been dead for 36 hours, contradicting the claim that he had been in the water for months. This fueled suspicions that he had been held captive before his death.
Brian Welzien.
Nurse Paul Kochu disappeared in December 2014 in Pittsburgh after returning home from a bar. 3 months later, his body was found 80 miles away in the Ohio River. His autopsy revealed broken ribs and a scalp wound, raising suspicions of foul play. Authorities ruled his death undetermined, but many believe he was attacked before ending up in the water. These cases and many more reveal a pattern that cannot be ignored. Since 2008, the number of suspected cases has risen to over 300. Yet, they continue to be ruled as accidents. The circumstances surrounding these deaths share unsettling similarities, raising more concerns with each passing year.
Paul Kochu. Paul Kochu, 22, was an athletic young man, graduated from Pittsburgh's Donetsk University and working as a nurse at Allegheny General Hospital. He went missing in the early morning hours of December 16, 2014. After drinking at a bar and watching Monday Night Football, he left his friends and went home, where he accidentally cut his hand. His roommates came home to help clean that up. Kochu was last seen at 1:30 a.m. after his friends left to get food. 10 days after, police released surveillance footage that captured Kochu at 2:45 a.m., heading in the direction of the 10th Street Bridge, which crosses the Monongahela River in downtown Pittsburgh. 3 months later, Kochu's body was found floating in the Ohio River near Wheeling, West Virginia, with a small cut on his hand, 3 broken ribs, and a 1-inch wound on his scalp.
Despite the growing number of cases and unsettling patterns, authorities continue to dismiss the Smiley Face Murder Theory. Instead of acknowledging the possibility of foul play, they stand by their ruling of accidental drownings, blaming alcohol and misfortune. But why? Many believe that admitting these deaths are connected would mean exposing a massive failure, a failure to catch a serial killer, or possibly an entire network, operating undetected for decades. Accepting this theory would force law enforcement to explain why, after so many years, no suspects have been identified and no arrests have been made. Yet, the deaths have not stopped. More young men continue to disappear under the same eerie circumstances, their bodies turning up in water, their families left without answers. If these truly are accidents, why do they keep happening? And if they aren't, how much longer will the truth be ignored? With each new case, the demand for justice grows louder. But until authorities are willing to take a closer look, the mystery of the Smiley Face killers will remain unsolved, and whoever is behind it may still be out there, watching, waiting, and striking again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts on this case.